saying men should be dangerous. By dangerous, that implies I should be ready to threaten someone, to hurt somebody.
No, you should be capable of it. There's nothing to you otherwise.
Welcome to the Dangerous Man Podcast, where we talk about how to become a better man, take responsibility for our mission, create value for others, and the many failures and lessons we've learned along the way. Stay dangerous.
Welcome to the Dangerous Man. I am your host, Adam Thooft, joined by co-host
John Kostohris.
What's up, John?
Hey, man, how you doing today?
Dude, I'm doing fantastic today. I mean, we just had a
fantastic.
Yeah,
Did you hear that, guys?
Me and John just had a really good preamble before we hit record here. It's been quite a time. As some of you who have been listening to the podcast may know, I've been doing a 75 hard.
Yeah, come on.
And in some ways it's kicking my ass, and in some ways it's really, really good. But a huge part of it is I've been reading a lot of material after this, and it was episode 51, I believe, that we talked about what to say when you talk to yourself.
That's the name of the book, right?
Yes, that was the book. I fully read that book, and I'm now reading The Magic of Thinking Big. But there's the night.
Sounds dangerous, dude.
Yeah, there. Get a big brain going up in here. Oh yeah. But
come on.
Something that I kind of has been impacting me a lot from the book, What to Say When You Talk to Yourself, by Shad Helmstetter, or as we like to call him, Shadrach.
Good old Shadrach.
That's how he's known on the streets there.
Yo.
But he talks about a concept called personal growth stasis. And in my life recently, with doing 75 hard, obviously I have to do a bunch of stuff every day. It's like 2 workouts, gallon of water, reading 10 pages, a couple other things as well. Just, reference Real AF podcast by Andy Frisell if you really want to know more about that program. But it has helped me realize how much time I actually have in a day, because I've had to actually force myself to do things.
Yeah.
And I've also realized there's other ways that I want to grow outside of just doing the mental recalibration program that is 75 hard. And I want, I want to get a better job, and I want to grow my business.
Wow.
And because the thing is the job that I have now,
I just want to say this man talking right now, this is a man of focus. That was clarified goals, man. You just laid out 3 things. I just thought that was really cool.
Yeah.
That was really, really neat.
Sweet. Thanks, John.
Yeah.
But within this is okay, the job that I have right now, working valet, parking people's cars for them. It's a good job. Make some money here and there. Pays the bills. Management's great. It's a great company. The thing is the job is very much more designed for, a high schooler can be, there's high schoolers that are employed. As long as you can drive cars, you can basically work at the job. And we work at a bunch of different locations, and I work at most of them. So it's not I'm good at adjusting to different locations and all this stuff, to be able to do everything. So I'm getting to the point where I feel like I'm not really learning how to do more at this job. And so I'm not gaining skills, but also I could be making more money, because it's currently early February. And for those who don't know, late December, January, and February are the slow months for hotels, which are the locations where we valet cars at. So during this time, it's we're not scheduled as much, so there's not as much money coming in, which makes finances a little bit more tight. So I'm I'm realizing, and I've realized for a while now that I'm like, the amount of growth that I want is not available like in this job. And I want to get a sales job because I know sales will help me with business and will just help me with my interpersonal communication and leadership.
Right.
And potentially make me more money when I get better at it. And it actually has a skill cap to it. However, I've been telling people for probably months that I'm going to get a sales job. And here I am still not found another job.
Yeah.
So it's like, I know what I want to do, but I'm not, and I know like how to do it. Like I apply for jobs. I talk to people about, do you know anybody that knows of like openings for sales jobs that I could network with? Like I know what I have to do, but I'm just not doing it. And before I could use kind of the excuse of, oh, I haven't had time to apply for jobs. I haven't had time to, build my business. I haven't had time, but with 75 hard, I've realized how much time I have, and I have like been able to do a little bit here and there, but I'm not able to like get the results that I want. And it's like this frustration of I know what I must do, but I'm not doing it.
Yeah.
Why? And I was reading What to Say When You Talk to Yourself, and we get to Mr. Shadrach himself, talking about personal growth stasis. And
you're saying too, Adam, I'll be very quick.
Yeah.
You said earlier, mental recalibration program, which is like definitely not like, that's a phrase Adam just kind of came up with on the spot, 475 hard. But then you're like, wow, I didn't realize all these things, but all of a sudden this program is revealing to me that those excuses, if I don't have time, are kind of bullshit.
Yeah.
And anyways, I just thought mental recalibration. Yeah. You're like, whoa,
that's what the program's for.
Yeah. Yeah. Anyways, that's incredible. But please continue.
But anyway, what Shadrach says about overcoming personal growth stasis is, well, first off, he defines stasis by saying, stasis in personal growth is the challenge that occurs when you stay in one place and live between two opposing positions. In this case, the two opposing positions are where you've been up till now, and two, your unlimited future and where you'd like your life to go next. It happens when you're standing in the middle between your past and your future, not wanting to stay where you are, but not able to put yourself into action and launch forward with enough enthusiasm and belief to get you moving. I think I paused, like that part of the book probably hit me the most. And I mean, I've read the whole thing, so yeah, it's the part that has hit me the most, where it's like, wow, this is my life. I feel like there are things I'm being held back. And in What to Say When You Talk to Yourself, the book, Shad goes into like your programming of basically your subconscious, your thoughts and your self-talk and what's happening.
Yeah.
And kind of what I've noticed is I'm like fighting my self-conscious so much in like this state of like personal growth stasis, because it's like, oh, I should reach out to people about jobs, or I should like, restructure my Indeed profile so I can get better leads on jobs that I'm looking for, or I should reach out to people to see if they know anybody. But then my subconscious goes, we need dopamine. Go watch TV.
Right.
So, and then you're like, well, why'd I stay up late watching TV? And now I wake up late, and then I'm behind on 75 hard stuff. So then I have to catch up with that. And then my day's off structured. And then and then it's just harder to find time to do the things that I know I needed to do. And then I can get into this pit of like making excuses for it again. And then there's like a feeling of just like you know,
Yeah.
where
Just so much frustration. Huh?
so much frustration because it's like I know what I have to do. Why am I like? It's like it's so frustrating in that space because it's like I know what I have to do. I'm just not doing it. And
just not doing it.
Kind of what I want to theorize with John a little bit today is what do we do? What do we do about this? I can't say that I'm an expert in breaking out of personal growth stasis and getting out of this place where it's just like I'm here like, and this like it's especially frustrating because it's like it's not just like my first time being in this situation.
Right.
Like I feel like for like a few months I felt like I know what I need to do, but why am I not doing it? Okay, I'm gonna do it now. No, I didn't do it. Why?
30 seconds later, you're still like clenched.
I'm punching my fists and feel like punching a wall because I'm like, what?
Have you seen that YouTube video of what's the guy's name again? I can't remember, but he's like, just do
Shia LaBeouf.
Shia LaBeouf.
Just don't let your dreams be dreams.
Don't let your dreams be dreams. Dude, low key, Daniel, one of the guys on the podcast from time to time in our Dangerous Men's Club, he used to always say that in high school. Don't let your dreams be dreams. And he still says it. It's amazing. But yeah, anyways, what a legendary video.
Yeah.
But yeah, like that kind of, do it. But it's like, okay, well. But
then you like, you say that and you get yourself hyped up and then you just kind of feel like you mentally trip over yourself. And then you're like waking up the next day and being like, well, why didn't I get stuff done yesterday?
Right. Yeah. Yeah, man. It's there's a lot to unpack here. And I think that's okay. I think like Adam said, we don't have every single answer. We might not be the experts on it, but I think here's what's important is that Adam is reading 10 pages a day. He is doing 2 45-minute workouts a day. He's drinking all the water. He's healthier diet, right? He's putting work in just as a baseline, and I'm reading books. And I could get into some of my story too a little bit of late, where I actually very much relate to this sentiment of personal growth stasis, this frustration of kind of growing. And, I have some insights and some of my thoughts. And, I think it's important to kind of ask the question, well, we could talk about, it's just this personal growth stasis. And like, you're just gotta do it. And like, it's like, I'm not gonna show up and say a bunch of bullshit like that.
And you gotta like not let personal growth stasis be like the excuse. Like, I'm just in personal growth stasis right now.
Yeah, right.
I'll get around to it later.
That's stupid. It's like, we're not here to like macho pump anyone up. It's like, okay, personally, I found a lot of fruit and kind of, I guess I've unlocked stages of growth in my life by using my brain, using our mind. I think there's a reason that we are thinkers. A lot of other, you could look at on a very basic level, we can relate to some capacity to animals, and we both have hearts and we're both alive. I personally don't really look at myself as an animal, but there is an aspect of that is relatable. But they don't have the reason. They don't have the intellect, the intellectual aspects that we do. And I just think when we talked about in episode 51, so 2 episodes ago, we dug into like the things that we speak. What's the name of the book? The things we tell ourselves?
What to say when you talk to yourself.
Yeah. And we hit on this idea of like, Adam brought up the example of names, remembering names. And it was kind of like this belief he realized he had where he didn't believe that he could remember names. And so he just kind of carried this drag, this like dead weight on him that's literally good for nothing, but handicapping him mentally, that he couldn't remember names. And so he was difficult. It was difficult to meet people. And in conversation, it got odd. And because his brain was just programmed that way because of that. And so what I'm getting at, we can go listen to that episode if you want to learn more about that. But what I want to get at here is, if you don't believe that you can read and you can think and that you can reason and you can philosophize and you can actually grow mentally as a man and you can come to deep profound insights through yourself, through your studying and through your conversations with other esteemed men and becoming men, then and experts in their fields, whatever, like then you're short circuiting yourself, and that's a belief believe you need to shed. And I would say that because we can get to some things here. We can learn through a lot of stories, and we can really dissect this a little bit. So I just want to challenge that. Like I would just say, well, why are you experiencing personal growth stasis? So I think we just want to start there.
Yeah. So Shad goes into a little bit of this, and he basically says that the programs that are in your mind, how your brain is structured, which is kind of makes up your subconscious, your habits, how you talk to yourself, that is currently in certain areas is stronger than your will and your consciousness. So subconscious versus your consciousness. In some areas, your subconscious is stronger than your consciousness. So that's what's keeping you like stuck. I have like the picture of like, you're like trying to like walk into like, you're walking in a hallway and you're trying to like walk into a door, but there's like, you know, like shadowy black arms like grabbing onto you.
Yeah. Wow.
So you can't walk through the door. And you're just like, you're really trying to be in that other room because you're tired of being in the room that you're just in, but those shadowy like black arms are still kind of holding on to you.
Wow.
And you're not quite strong enough to break away from them. That's kind of like a picture that I get when I think about like your subconscious is like still pulling on you.
Wow.
And
that's powerful.
The solution that Shad puts forth is you have to set a goal to become a more positive self-thinker. Or how does he phrase it exactly? I'll pull the book up right here.
Reference the pages.
He says, set a goal to bring positive self-talk permanently into your life.
Wow. Set a goal to have positive self-talk. A habit in your life? Is that what he said?
Permanently in your life.
Permanently in your life. Wow. So not only shedding some of these negative beliefs, but actually I'm going to incorporate thinking positively in my life permanently. Yeah. Like that's going to be part of my life, is that there are positive thoughts that I'm thinking and choosing to think and dwelling on.
And then his other two recommendations are to, he says like listen to self-talk sessions. But also this could be making your own self-talk and having a specific time of day where you're like specifically working on your self-talk and actually telling yourself proper self-talk. Like actually like change, and a lot of it's like changing almost your identity in ways. Cause going back to the example of like not being good like at saying names, like the negative self-talk is, oh, I'm not good at remembering names.
Right.
The kind of the middle of that is like, I need to be good at saying names, but then if you finish that sentence, it's, but I'm not yet. But I'm not yet good at remembering names. So
is it still kind of negative then?
So it's still kind of negative.
Or at least neutral, kind of neutral.
It's actually kind of negative, but kind of hides from you because you're like, I need to get better at saying names. You feel like that's putting me into action. But if you notice how you feel, this is what I've noticed is when I say that, I still feel like, but I'm not yet. So I'm still kind of shit.
I kind of feel that feeling. Even you saying that phrase is making me kind of connect with that emotionally, which is interesting.
Whereas but then you could also say like, I'm going to be a person that's good at saying names. But again, you can finish that with, but I'm not yet. What you should say is, I'm good at remembering names.
Wow. Just like that.
Yeah. Or I'm good at remembering names now.
Wow.
Or
what about something like, I love remembering names?
That works too.
It's super important to me and I care a lot about it, or something like that.
I care a lot about remembering names.
Yeah.
That would work too.
Is that almost affirming a value you could want to take on and identify with in yourself? Right?
Yeah. So you want to say it as if you're kind of like already have it, because from that point on, you're convincing your subconscious that you do. So then your subconscious
Let's go of your shoulders to walk into the next room.
Yeah, let's go of that, but also we'll actually change it to actually help you remember names better, because it
will side with you.
It'll end up siding with you, because before, when you just use the excuse of I'm bad at remembering names, this is what we talked about in episode 51, it will be like, oh, you're bad at remembering names. Therefore names are useless information. Whereas if you say, no, names are very important to me and I remember names, eventually, and you say that to yourself, and you have reasons why that's the case, because it's like, I want to have good impressions on people. I have good impressions on people. Self-talk.
I see what you did there. Wow. I think it's going to be the difference. You're in a conversation. I want to illustrate this. I'm in a conversation with, I don't know, we'll say Tim, and Tim says his name, and I kind of, for a minute, I forget his name, and I could slip into, oh shoot, I want to be good at names. I'm not yet. Or like, oh, I'm not great at names. So whatever, I just won't remember it. We're trying to justify whatever we're trying to justify that we didn't remember it. But if I go, oh, remembering names is so important to me, and I'm actually really good at it, and I might go, actually, I might actually try to remember his name, or I might ask again.
What was his name again?
Wait, what did you say your name was? Tim. So I meant your last name.
or it's like,
you can use that. I highly recommend it. It works really well. But then you're at least gonna fight for it and not be like afraid and kind of chicken out and just be like, oh, well, it doesn't matter anyways. Like that's gonna propel you forward to uphold that value of remembering names, right?
Like, I talked to a woman who I know, like, I should know her name, but I didn't say her name when we were talking. She didn't say my name either. I don't know if she remembered my name at that point either. So, like, names didn't come up in the conversation. It was a brief conversation, but later I was like, I know her name. What is it? I know I do. It's in there. Like, come on. And I like.
So you believed you knew it.
Yeah.
Is that kind of the result of?
I believed I knew it, and then I said, like, and I would say, like, I think it's this name. No, that's not quite it. And then eventually I landed on, like, the proper name, and I knew that was the correct name.
Wow.
I'm like, yes, okay. now I connect that name to other things that I know by that name, so I can connect that so I can remember it better. Okay, sweet.
Yeah. Wow. That's a cool, I don't want to get too hung up on that, but I think that's such a cool visualization of maybe what's happening under the scenes here.
Yeah.
Not just saying, oh, it's good to have positive self-talk. Well, you can maybe see why now, how that changes when you change.
Yeah.
Right?
Because
changes your behavior and the way you
I've
fight for your values.
I've noticed specifically in the area of remembering names, the self-talk I use, because like after reading, because he gives that example in the book too. After reading that, I said, no, I'm going to have good self-talk about remembering names, because
just took on his thing.
It is important to me to remember people's names.
Yeah. Whew.
Because being able to call someone by name is almost like you can affirm them in a way by that. And they feel seen by that. So I think just in conversations with people, that's so important.
I agree.
And so I didn't let the excuse of, I'm not good at remembering names, bug me more. And I've grown, and I've noticed myself growing in that.
See, that's the growth there.
Now, am I like really, really, really good at remembering names yet? No, but I'm going to be. So, that's the growth that I've seen.
And you're seeing growth already.
Yeah, I've seen growth, and this is just over like a couple of weeks.
Yeah.
Because I've actually like stopped identifying with I'm bad at remembering names and started identifying with actually I'm good at remembering names, and names are important to me.
Yeah.
But so there is some growth in that area. I lost my train of thought. Personal growth stasis.
Yeah. I have a thought.
Yes.
I think this will take you back to where we're going. We mentioned that this is a thing, and we kind of went into it a little bit.
Yeah.
Personal growth stasis, that is. But we also said, okay, I think we were talking about maybe a couple tips to help, right? I think that's where we were wrapping up right there. But I also think it's important to understand why that we have personal growth stasis when we feel like I feel like it's like you said, it's somebody grabbing, like those black hands grabbing the back of you, not letting you walk through that door that's clearly open. It could also be you could feel like you're coming up to a wall that you have to somehow jump over or scale, but there's nothing to grab, and it's like, you know what I mean? So it's like this barrier, right? You know, this could be whatever, right? I think it's important to understand, you know, why, because it's obviously, Adam, you mentioned getting a sales job, right? And I think that's really interesting because it's like, why don't you just do it? You said, well, I know what I have to do. I just don't do it. You kept saying, I just don't do it. But it's like, okay, well, that's a great insight, but it's like, that's not going to give you any more. Recognizing that's important, but I think that's one step. How are we going to do something about it? Isn't that a question that's in the back of all of our minds?
Yeah.
What do I need to do, or what do I need to? I actually would say, what do you need to know to help you move past that? And I think a lot of the power of that wall or those hands grabbing onto you are going to dissipate when we can really identify what's going on. And anyways, I have this little excerpt from a book. It's by a guy named Francis de Sales, but he's talking about basically when we want to have values and principles in our lives and we want to grow in personal excellence as a man and as a human. He dives so much into the kind of the human experience there. And so there's one nugget in particular where he's talking about, he says, in this enterprise, referring to when it comes to personal growth, right? To give some context here, I'm just going to read it. I think it highlights some really good human emotions that we might experience. You might picture what the personal growth stasis is for you when you're hearing this. Picture what that wall is. Picture what you feel is being held back on that you need to do that you aren't. Picture that when you're hearing this. So he says, in this enterprise, we must have courage and patience. What a pity it is to see people who perceive themselves still subject to many imperfections after striving to be more devout for a while. And then they begin to be dissatisfied, disturbed, and discouraged, and almost let their hearts give in to a temptation to give up everything and go back to their old way of life. Right? And a couple of things I was really thinking about and reflecting on this when I read it was, I think he highlights really well that when we start to want to grow, we decide as men we want to grow. And we want to pursue this journey of personal excellence. And he says, we'll perceive all of the imperfections we still have, even though we committed and started the journey. We still early on, we're like, okay, I still, you know, like you said earlier in our pre-ramble, Adam, if we could simply just think and be like, and start the journey and be like, I'm going to be a billionaire. And then we just were like that, like this wouldn't be a thing.
Yeah.
But the reality is like, that's going to take a long time and a lot of hard work. And it's going to be a journey.
It's a journey. It's a process.
Steps. And
to growing and becoming a better man. Corn doesn't go from, a seed instantly to being, 8 foot tall ear of corn, right?
Yeah.
It has to grow. It's a process.
And so perhaps it's easy to start something and have resolve to be better, to grow, but we forget that it's growing. That it takes that actual, like, you'll put a camera on in fast mode and you'll see it actually moving and growing. And it's like, that takes place over a calendar, not like secondhand on a clock. You know what I mean? Like, and I think that's important to realize that this is going to be a little bit every day, a little bit every day. So I want to get a little bit into that, but let's just say, like, we begin to be dissatisfied, disturbed, and discouraged, and almost let our hearts give, like, into the way of thinking, our self-talk, give up everything and just go back to our old life, to being average, to being, whatever, in your mom's basement playing video games, or not paying for any of your own bills, not even having something you really enjoy doing besides, these dopamine hits and media, social media, and comparing ourselves. It's like, right, whatever your old life is, whatever the purpose, aimless, boy who wants to become a man is, even if you're 25, even if you're 22, even if you're 18, 17, hearing this, right? That we might be like, okay, I see something and now I see this, like, I see David Goggins on Instagram and he's saying, this is how you could become better and blah, blah, blah.
Stay hard.
Stay hard. Yeah, exactly. and you're like, oh yeah. And then you're like motivated. And then the next day, you're not motivated.
Yeah.
And repeat. That is what we're talking about with this personal growth stasis of like, it's easy to go quickly into being like, oh, I'm dissatisfied, I'm disturbed, I'm discouraged.
Like
and
the next day you're not motivated because, you like wake up, you're kind of groggy, your bed logic's still intact. And so it's going like, yeah, you don't need to get up. Just hit the snooze button one more time.
Yeah.
And you're like, oh, that sounds really nice right now because I stayed up too late last night. And so you kind of like maybe hit the snooze button and then maybe get up and then maybe you're a little bit more like rushed. So you're not as peaceful in the morning and you're like, this sucks. And then you're like, oh, this is going to be hard, isn't it? I'm not, I don't feel the motivation from Goggins just hyping me up. Now I just got to actually go do it. I can't just like, think in my mind and be like, I'm doing it. I actually have to do it now. Oh no.
Yeah. And
maybe
why?
it's just better to go back to bed.
That's so relatable. Like I honestly do that a lot. And why? Right? Did we ask this question 3 times already? Why? Why does that happen? Why do we start and then we start to realize that it's not working? And it's like, well, number 1, we have to remember that this is growth. Growth. Like I said, it's a process in time. And we got to chip away at it a little bit every day. And we're going to look back over time and see the progress of the corn growing higher.
Mm-hmm.
But we're not going to see that happen now. We're going to look back and see where we were financially 10 years ago, but we're not going to see that in one day.
Yeah.
And once we realize that that's just how life works,
mm-hmm.
I think there's a lot we can release. We can let go of a lot. We can let go and realize that we just need to take a step today. And so I think that's really a big part of how we can overcome that. And but I will say, in my life.
So you're saying that like a good way to overcome it is by taking daily steps.
Yeah. And remembering that I don't need to be a billionaire overnight.
Yeah. It's not like you need to be like, oh, David Goggins hyped me up. Now I have to wake up and run 10 miles the next day, even though I haven't exercised in 2 months. Like,
right. Maybe you just need to exercise once.
Yeah. Maybe go for like a walk outside instead of doing nothing.
Yeah. And, it's like, I think you were saying this earlier, Adam, but, like I just need to, whatever. Yeah. Like this example, he's working out. I just need to work out and maybe I'll do it more times in 2 weeks. Maybe I'll be able to increase the weight, but I probably need to do it a bunch first. Right. So it's like the idea of like, before I feel like I can, I know you were talking about sales calls.
Yeah.
Before maybe you can make a goal of doing 100 sales calls in a day or 20 or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe you're not accomplishing that. And so it's easy to have these feelings of, I should just revert back to my old life. And so I don't do any of it. That's what I'm getting at is, well, what if you just what if you realized your goal of 100 sales calls a day is a great big goal and it's good to think big, but maybe I just need to grow up to that. And so maybe I just make 3 sales calls today or 1. And once I'm in the habit of doing 1, let's do 2 now. And like, let's be willing to be humbled as men to grow a little bit as long as we're growing.
But
unless you can do it really quickly, but go ahead.
If you can do more sales calls, then obviously do them. Like, don't make your goal smaller. Keep your goal big.
Right.
But just know that you're not going to be able to, like, there's like steps to your goal, not just like, oh, well, I just do this for long enough and then bada bing, bada boom, I reach my goal. It's like, well, if it's a winning strategy, maybe that's the case, but you got to make sure you're it's almost important to like have a goal and then also say like how you're actually going to get there, because it's not just like, so many times when I set goals, it's like, I'm going to get a new sales job. Now I just, grit, like white knuckle my life and it'll eventually get there, because eventually I'll get fed up with not having it and I'll take a lot of action. Like, no, actually, like maybe have like a plan.
Right. Maybe plan a time to sit down and plan a plan out.
Yeah.
It's like, just, right? Like, how often is it like, I don't have time to make a plan. Well, get on your calendar right now. When would you have time to think about a plan? Tuesday. Great. On Tuesday, I will sit down and think about how I want to make a plan. It's like you literally got to, you know what I mean? Like break it up. And my example is when I was running my marathon, when I was training for it, I think the reason why we don't do the things that we know we need to do, we just aren't doing them, as you said. I think it all comes down to this. That we'll use me, for example. I don't want to speak this over myself, but I don't believe that I can do it.
Say the opposite now, just so you know. So you're not speaking it over to yourself.
You don't believe that you can do it. Let me get this straight. Why would I go out for a run if I didn't believe that I could actually run the marathon? And so the first point I gave was, well, if you're thinking you could do it tomorrow, then of course you're going to be disappointed. Because let news break, that's not reality.
Yeah, you can't go from running that at all to running a marathon.
Yep. If you can realize that expectation and implement it, then I don't think you're going to have that temptation to turn back to the old way of life, because you know that this is more granular, so you can relax a little bit and not take your time per se, but like do what you can today, not what you can't do today, right? And take steps. That there's a lot of peace that comes in that, right? But I'm talking about in point 2 is, well, I don't actually, maybe you just don't actually believe that it's possible. And guess what? I know that I can't just run a marathon tomorrow. And so what? I know that I need to run once, then I need to run a couple times a week. And then I need to every week scale up a few miles. And then, after a few months, I'll be able to be running like 10 or 15 miles a day or every other day, whatever my plan is. And I know that is possible because I've seen it. That's how every marathon runner does it. And guess what? I just follow what works. And then all of a sudden I see them completing marathons. So I know it's possible. There's so much evidence through experience. And therefore I can just kind of look at who's doing it well and learn from them and do it. And so I never actually doubted I could run the marathon, because the moment I was like, oh, I don't know if I could do this, I was like, well, of course I can't do it today. But guess what? I'm doing more miles than I was last week. So obviously this is working. And after a few months of doing it, I was like, I could see myself getting better at running. So clearly the plan is working. There's no need to run 20 miles today. I'm not trained up to 20 miles yet. I just need to run my 8. And next week I need to run my 10 or whatever it is, right? And I think when I met a lot of people and I told them I was doing a marathon, they said, oh, I could never do that. And it's like, well, maybe they didn't realize that it's actually quite possible if you can actually ramp up to it.
It's like, well,
isn't that how everything in life works?
Like maybe when they're saying like, oh, I can't do that. Well, first off, it's like it's a limiting belief in bad self-talk, and they should probably change that. But
yeah, exactly.
But
point in case.
Sometimes I think they're thinking about, oh, I couldn't do that today. Well, it's like, well, no, duh. Like,
right. Yeah.
like you haven't been running. Of course, you're not going to do a marathon today. But if you like actually started running, you'd probably get better at it. And eventually you'd be able to work up to it. And that's something that I've also noticed so much with like working out, because I've been like very consistent in the gym over the past,
3 months,
6-7 months, something like that.
Oh, dang. He's been going.
Yeah,
oh, man.
Whatever like July to January is.
Wow. I have evidence. I have all of his workouts on an app that I follow.
Yeah, John can look them up. If you want those, you can email John and
I can send you the proof.
Or just follow me at Adam Thooft on Heavy app.
yeah, exactly.
Give him a plug.
Yeah, it's a great app.
But the growth that I've been able to see over like the 7 months or whatever that I've been in the gym is like, I've looked back on pictures and be like, wow, my arms are small in that picture, because I've gotten so used to like the size that they are now that I just kind of feel
that's how it's
like,
always been,
or that this is the normal size, and I'll compare myself to like some massive dude, like, I don't know, Sam Sulek or something. And I'm like, I'm not that big, so like I feel small, but it's like, actually I'm a lot bigger than I used to be.
Yeah. Wow.
And sometimes it takes like another person to actually like say that too. Cause like sometimes you're like, like, cause when you're looking at yourself in the mirror and like, cause like day to day, you don't necessarily see a whole lot of muscle growth. You feel like, I know I worked my muscles, and I know I'm bigger than I was like maybe 7 months ago, but like, I don't feel bigger. I don't know. Like, is this working? I don't like, but then like I worked out with, one of my friends, Tyler, that's his name. And he knew me kind of when I first started doing like some kind of workout stuff.
He was kind of like an early introduction to some of that for you.
Yeah, because he was like a jock that's like into working out and playing sports and stuff. So like like I worked with him, so doing like missionary work. So we also like started working out together a little bit.
Gotcha. Okay.
And it was more like generally like calisthenics or like some just kind of general training. Not like we weren't doing like heavy lifting or anything like that, but it did like allow me to kind of start training and get like a feel for like, oh, like I can work out. I did raise my belief in myself that like I am capable of gaining muscle and like or getting the pump and whatnot. And working out with him recently was interesting because I was telling him like, dude, now I'm like I'm as big normally as I like used to be, what my pump used to be. And he was like, nah, man, I think you're actually bigger. I was like,
yeah,
wow. Like, that's huge.
To hear from him too.
Yeah. And like, that is like an affirmation, but it's also like I feel like I'm like, there's like freedom in that.
Yeah.
Cause it's like, oh, it is working. Yes. And like sometimes when we're in like personal growth stasis, like we're growing, but we don't feel like we're growing because like the shadowy hands are still holding onto us. And yeah, we're actually getting rid of some of them, but we're not actually moving, forward, but we are loosening what's pulling on us.
Oof. Wow.
By, changing, I'm actually doing, like going to the gym almost daily, doing, 75 hard and working on like personally, like where my mental space is at. And that's something that I've seen so much from like doing 75 hard is actually being able to grow my personal state of like, wait, I have wins like every day because of the things I do doing 75 hard. I'm like, I didn't lose at 75 hard today. So that feels like a huge win because there's definitely times like I had an opportunity earlier today to eat donuts. And if I were to eat a donut, I'd lose 75 hard. And I was like, I really want a donut right now, but I'm like, but I'm not going to have it because I'm winning and I'm disciplined. And
man, there's a whole lot I want to say about that for next time.
So like being able to like realize like, hey, like I am in this place where I feel like I can't move forward and I'm stuck in who I was and who I want to be. And I feel like these shadowy hands are holding me back. But at the same time, you may not be noticing the just shadowy hands that are letting go of you. And sometimes you need a brother to be able to notice like, hey man, you can move your leg a little bit more forward now because there's no shadowy hands holding on to you. It's kind of like me or kind of like Tyler telling me like, I've gained a lot of muscle. And it's like, well, or noticing like, oh, hey, I am disciplined because I have stuck to doing like the 75 hard stuff. I have the confidence that I am disciplined because of that.
Wow.
And it definitely helps to have like those brothers there that are also like trying to grow themselves. Like I have John that's in my life and he's trying to grow. I'm trying to grow. We have, Peter, Jimmy, Dan, our Dangerous Men's Club, where we're all trying to grow, and it gives us so much hope in kind of this personal growth stasis. And there's like kind of despair and hopelessness in that, where you're just like, I know what I needed to do, but I just don't do it. Well, sometimes brothers can be like, hey man, you're actually like growing towards the thing that you're trying to do. You're just not necessarily seeing it when you look at yourself, because when you self-reflect, you feel like you should be already there, but you're not.
Yeah. One of your brothers is going to have a win in his life.
Yeah.
He's going to put time and development into the guy who's growing, right?
Mm-hmm.
These guys we've mentioned, they're going to put time and effort into their self-talk and into reprogramming that. And when they're going to come up against that wall or those shadowy hands of personal growth, stasis, despair, the reason I said was that you just don't believe you can do it. Even though you kind of know what you need to do, you're not convinced that it's going to happen. And one of them is going to do, regardless of that, they're going to take steps. And that's what we call faith. You don't believe, it's hard to see, but you're just going to trust your mentors. You're going to trust the books you're reading. You're going to trust the people that have gone before you and are coaching you. And you're going to do it. And you're going to see wins, and you're going to look back and you're going to see the growth. And then these guys, these brothers are going to be that like example and witness to me and to Adam. And they're going to share that. And then all of a sudden, when we are sharing or kind of describing how I don't believe that I could, like Adam, like, I don't believe I could get a sales job or whatever it is, or I don't believe that I would be good at it, or that, all the effort seems like a ton of whatever, and it's too much. And I don't know that it would be worth it. There's questions like that. They can step in and speak into that. And they can say, I have the belief and I have the faith, and actually you can do it. Like Adam, you're like very good at talking to people, and you are growing so much. You're not the same man you were later or earlier in life. Stop thinking that man you were is the man you are now, and stop thinking that the man you will be in 6 months working that job is going to be the same that's first applied for that job. And realize that it's okay to be where I'm at today, and that every step will add towards who I'm becoming. And they have seen that, and they are amped, and they believe. And it's not just David Goggins going, stay hard. It's actually your friend who is convinced because he knows you really well, and you're more convinced because it's coming from him. And I think that's the why. That's what can help solve this growth stasis, is this belief. And so, yeah, we talked about how important it is to get around men that also want to grow and don't just want to drink and get drunk and party and whatever, just watch football and do nothing with their lives. You can obviously have a drink and watch football and not fall into that category, but like we've spent too much time talking about this, right? Anyways, that we actually need to find these men and get around them. And so it's like that's what we're trying to build here with Dangerous Men's Club, and that's what we're trying to build with this podcast. And honestly, this isn't something that can be done alone. The actions need to happen individually, but this encouragement and this connection and this faith being built in how we reprogram our minds, this is done with others that are also on that journey. And yeah.
You can do it, guys. We believe in you. You believe in you. And stay dangerous.
Share the show if you want to help other men embrace danger and become truly great. You've been listening to The Dangerous Man. Join us next time. Until then,
claim your greatness
and stay dangerous.